Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the glistening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just is isn't always justice. These are the powerful words of Amanda Gorman's inauguration poem. Hello, everyone. My name is Doribel Henao, and I am so excited and proud to welcome you to our 2021 Black History Celebration. As one of the inaugural Diversity Fellows, Professor of Educational Leadership, and member of the Black and Latinx Faculty and Staff Association, we welcome you. Without each and every member, this would not be possible. Thank you, BLFSA. I am thrilled to be part of such an important endeavor at Queens College. Our theme, Sankofa, reminds us that in order to understand our present and ensure our future, we must know our past. Today, we welcome you to learn, be a part of our history beyond February. We look forward to an amazing program.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Jay Marie. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, great. So this is our last day in Black History Month, and we are so pleased to have Jay Marie Hill with us today. I'm going to introduce you, and then we will just follow you in what you have to share with us. We are really pleased and happy and so glad to have you with us today. Okay, so J. Marie Hill, or J. Marie is Holy, is a musician, a poet, educator, activist, and trans organizer who pushes communities and others to live in beyond of gendered and racialized norms. They are the founder and lead dreamer of Music Freedom Dreams, a consultancy and production house where music, art, and education are used to work with communities, bring about systemic change, and elevate the power of Black women, queer, and trans people across the country. In 2019, they organized the Black Trans Bike Experience, a cycling expedition where riders broke bread with Black trans community and organizers along the route from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Since 2018, J. Marie has helped build a trans justice movement in the Midwest through their work at the ACLU of Missouri. It is a pleasure and it is a treat for us to have J. Marie to learn about their inner journey of ongoing affirmation, awareness of the sacred, the music, the poetry, and the beauty and the power of being Black, trans, and brilliantly expansive. So, with those words, I leave you with J. Marie and everything that she has to share with us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is J. Marie is Holy. In this moment, I will be sharing a poem to kick us off because while our slides will be getting put up here, I'm very excited to share some words with you, to share some creativity with you, and to make sure that we all walk away that much more aware of the potential of our power. So just gonna wait for these slides to get put up. Just one moment. Very grateful. Thank you so much. So to begin, this experience will be a truth-telling kind of experience guided by myself. I'm an artist and organizer, but I want to kick off with a poem because on the next slide, we can see that, Sankofa is about remembering, right? And so I'm going to be bringing you back to that place through a poem. America taught me how to forget. My name, my pain, my stories, my glories, it's never enough for the beast of forgetting. Insatiable appetite, this creature sure has that don't stop and won't till I give up my past. My breath, my toes, my fears, my nose, it's all in the running for me if you'll let it, because ain't no part worth leaving out, as I tell it. So here I am, y'all. My story's at ready. Finally shouting my own truth so steady. My wounds feel them shrinking at these unleashed truth. See, they fester in me, yes, but also in you. They fester cause Black built this ish. From damn White House to blessed pew. We built this place, they killed our race and spread lies in our deathful wake. These lies, they pull us both down deep, like a score that's never settled. The wounds so real like gaping holes untouched as brand new metal. Well, I say, the time is now. The time has come to face the charge, to heal the masses and play the cards. This mantra mine for everywhere leaps from my lips here as a prayer. I don't believe the lies you tell. The lies you sell, they won't get through. To those who'd wish me keep amnesia 3/5 whole now, full and regal. So while America may have taught me how to forget, come see me, love me back to remembering. I bring us that place, I bring us that prayer, because Sankofa is all about, right? It's an imploration to remember. It is to reach back and gather, right? To go back and to reach back in order to move forward. We must know our history in order to move forward. And so the first place I reach out to is my history. If you go to the next slide, you can see that I come to you maybe as a deviation from the sacred text that we are used to seeing in Black History Month, right? We are used to seeing erasure of bodies like mine, right? We're used to seeing people who have put themselves on the line, but only to gather fame, right? Only to gather money. And, the other binary of this, right, is that maybe we focus on people who managed to get themselves killed by the state, right? And I don't live in either of those binaries. I don't feel called to achieve at those binaries. Fame and money, great. But I don't wish to further those goals of capitalism, right? Or of racial capitalism that Black Americans have been forced into, right? So what I see when I look at the classic pictures of who is lifted up in Black History Month, I see the Beyoncés and the LeBrons, right? And those who have achieved at those levels. But what of those who don't wish to achieve at those levels, right? What of those of us who will be in that middle, lower poverty class forever, right? Where is the ability for us to push in Black History Month to expand how everyone can be seen? Not just those who are at the top of the echelon of fame, money, power, things like that, right? I argue that Black History Month is a space that we should be pushing ourselves to learn about all of Blackness, right? And all of those who exist in this space. And so I come to you today as holy. In the next slide, I come to you as holy, as the Holy Ghost, as an embodiment of the Holy Ghost, as a musician, as a performer. Here is some images from my time as a performer in the band kind of organizing project called Rev Sekou and the Holy Ghost. We have an album, you can go check it out. This is us, gathering, visiting Harry Belafonte, the Great, in his home, longtime organizer, longtime powerful builder, community guide at his power level himself, right? But as I said, what of those who deviate from the text of normalcy, right? What of those of us who willingly and excitedly deviate from this space. What I encourage us to think about today is that given that I am coming to you as neither of those, as someone who does not tend to chase either of those things, though I have been in the presence of those who have received those things or worked hard for those things, I come to you as someone challenged, birthed to challenge, I believe, the American project of forgetting, right? I feel birthed to challenge the holiness it tells us is only meant for those in certain bodies with certain stories, because it is a pretty vast claim for me to claim to be the Holy Ghost, right? And yet, I don't falter. I know that I am holy. As a musician, I've both been welcomed into and claimed, right? Named myself of the right to occupy the space of the Holy Ghost. And as I said, it's a bold claim for anyone to make, but especially someone who exists beyond the gender binary. As a Black, trans, gender nonconforming, lots of words you can put on it. But regardless, what it is people see me and don't necessarily know if I'm a boy or a girl. My voice is just right there in between. My name is right there in between. You are forced to tussle with those stories you've told yourself as a result of my mere presence in your space. Before I get too much further into spirit work, I want to go to the next slide and bring in some ancestors who give us the right to do so. So in order for the holy veil to truly be broken, I must call on these ancestors and those who channel ancestors so that we can gain full permission from them to channel spirit. I bring in here those who call and teach us to be more present to the sacred texts and to more than the sacred texts that exist in the format that we're taught that they are to exist in, right? I call in those of us who learn from people who have taught us that we exist as sacred text. So I call in the body as sacred text, and I call in 3 specific ancestors without whom none of us would be here or nearly as free as we are and are called to be. I call in Audre Lorde, the lesbian warrior mother poet who was undeniably a fat Black woman that channeled these body knowledges into her work. I call in James Baldwin, a gay mid-century Black writer who channeled his body knowledges and his yearnings for more love as a Black gay man in the middle of this century into his work. And finally, as an ancestor, I call in Pauli Murray, the hero to many of your heroes. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Thurgood Marshall. Pauli Murray taught them, and their mind helped shape their work. Pauli Murray is a Black person who existed in a more binary time, passed away in 1985, but taught us all to look around and imagine beyond the binary of the moment, theirs and ours, who taught us to imagine beyond that possibility, beyond that, and see the possibility of what eventually became the 14th Amendment, right? The Equal Rights Amendment. Murray, built a strategy for women's empowerment using race equity and race equality victories under the 14th Amendment as a template. And their writings laid the intellectual architecture for gender equality, as we know, run by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And, Murray is my ACLU predecessor, as I have been working through the ACLU of Missouri. Murray joined the ACLU board in 1965 and also helped co-found the National Organization of Women in their time. And lastly, I call us into the present. I call us into the living lineage of Sonia Renee Taylor, who also gains permission to do her work with ancestral permission. But her work calls us all into a permission space of naming the body, right? As you see on this cover, this is a cover of her book, The Body is Not an Apology, which is also the name of a movement, an education entity, where she is pushing us to see our bodies, not as apologies, but as places to come into peace with. And so her work and the work of these ancestors is who I am proud to be in the lineage of, and who we will be speaking out of the rest of today, the learnings that I have gathered from them and the learnings that we will uncover will come from their lineage and their work. But before we speak to their histories and their futures, I want to call in one more ancestor on this next slide. And I will be bringing in Marlon Riggs here, a filmmaker, an artist, who, as many of us know, being in the midst of a raging pandemic, we might have an added nuanced space that we have available for what it's like to live through a pandemic, right? And so I will be presenting just a short portion of Marlon's movie Black Is, Black Ain't film. And so I'll just be opening up that video. One moment. Whenever the tech is able to provide some space on that, I can show you this short trailer. Thank you.
AIDS forces you because of the likelihood that you could die at this moment. AIDS forces you to deal with that and to look around you and say, hey, I'm wasting my time if I'm not devoting every moment to thinking about how can I communicate to Black people so that we start to look at each other. We start to see each other. Black kids, black ain't, black is black, 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 black kids. I say my black is and black ain't. Black is and black ain't. Black is blue and black is red. And black is tan. Black will get you. And black is light. And black will leave you alone. Black can get you over. Black can set you down. Black can let you move forward. And black will make you stumble around. It's so hot. And black is so low. Black can say yes. And black can be your best friend. Be cozy as the night. Black can do you in. Make you fuss and cuss and fight. Black is black. And black is blue. Black is bright. Black is you. Black.
For your patience with the tech there. So I call us to see all the things that Blackness can be during this Black History Month, right? I call us to reckon with the incomplete lessons of those of us, who have watched our elders pass away and know that their work was unfinished. I call us to acknowledge the ways that Blackness has contributed itself to us, where Black people have given of themselves, and where we are destined and committed to not repeat the things we have not yet fully learned. Beyond what Black is or is not is the reality that whether we are Black or not, we have learned lessons from the time of the AIDS epidemic to this time of this current epidemic, this current pandemic, I should say, panorama, as some of us might call it, because it is difficult to keep a straight face while realizing how much we have to manage in this time. But as I call forth the lessons of Marlon, the lessons of his colleagues who also passed in that time, I ask us to call in how many people we've heard from in this Black History Month that do live at this intersection of queerness, of gender, of transness, and of a commitment to that lineage. I know that I would not be here. I would not have seen a roadmap to become myself if not for some of these elders, some of the spirits that I called in on the slide before. But also, I know that it is now, as an adult, it is my duty to be that lineage for others, to continue that lineage and to be an embodiment of a commitment to that lineage. So on the next slide, you can see that a big part of my work is about claiming that lineage, is about committing to completing the lessons of those of us who, my loved ones, my guides who were not able to finish their story. My work is to complete the lesson. I believe, and I know by way of how people respond to me, by ways of how my body disrupts the possibility, that I'm here to complete the lesson, and that Black trans people themselves, all of us, are guides and an invitation into right relationship because of the history we represent in our bodies. So whether it is about aligning yourself with your own gender story, whether it is about throwing off all the lessons that don't serve you in your wholeness, Black trans people are an invitation into right relationship with our bodies. This Black History Month, right? We hear from the excellent and we hear from the famous, right? But what of those who have taught us to become whole? What of those who walk the walk and show us what is possible? I move us into the next slide where I'll be showing one more video, and please forgive us with the tech, y'all. This has been a learning experience for all of us. But the second portion of my talk will be about Black trans folks and our ability to walk the walk and to be committed to in life. So what this video shows us, that I'll be playing in a moment, is what it means to, is a practice and what it means to, a meditation on, I should say, claim the lineage of Black trans life. And the reality is many people do not have relationships with Black trans people. Many people do not have proximity to these communities, right? So maybe the first time or the only time you hear about Black transness is when someone is murdered or when someone is violently harmed, whether it's the Cece McDonald's of the world, someone who was a Black trans woman who was violently assaulted and then in her protection of herself was imprisoned, right? Maybe it's the B.B. Hills, the Nina Pops, the Ariane Burnett's, all of these people who were killed in Missouri, in the state that I now live. So while we know that there are many deaths on our hands and many places where we are responsible for completing the lessons, what we also know is that requires a commitment to life, right? Over Black trans death. If 80% of Americans don't know a trans person, right? That means even fewer know a Black trans person, right? This Black History Month, we must be adamant about calling in the Blackness at every intersection. And to commit to Black trans people in life means to acknowledge and be honest about what they are doing to survive. But first, as a meditation to get us into that space, I will offer this video, Here, Queer and Staying. So I will be presenting that one more time, y'all. Thank you for your interest, your patience. And as I'm presenting this and pulling it up, I encourage you all to think about the first place where you were taught that your gender or the way you do life in your body is wrong. Because I venture to say that is not a trans-specific issue. That is something we have all been taught. We all have bodies. We all have been taught that there's a right way and a wrong way to be in our bodies. And as Sonia Renee Taylor tells us, our work is to get into peace with our bodies. So I encourage you to think. And while I'm silently bringing up this video, I encourage you to think about the very first time a family member, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a friend, someone who you thought was a friend, but really they made you question your gender, made you question how long your hair was, what kind of clothes you like to wear, and where you were made to feel wrong because of that. I encourage you to watch this video from that space.
Song is rolling.
Round the cycle, we still go. Morning, what we hate to know. New day, wishing I didn't have to see so much death in front of me. More gone, more gone, more more gone. School and home and work and play, the fight is always rigged their way. This pain is a job that's never done. See, but I can't change a game we all got to play. No, no matter what I say. But we can change the rules that we play by. Here's one that's non-negotiable. We're here, queer, and we're staying. We're here, and we ain't going nowhere. No, we're here, queer, and we're staying. Now we're here, and we ain't going nowhere. No, nowhere to go. There's so much death out in these streets. We have had to redefine living. And they've pushed us out and kept us down. You can't get away with this much longer. We're all up in your workplace, all up in your bathrooms. We gotta make a life just like you. Said we're all up in your workplace, all up in your bathrooms. We gotta make a life just like you. See, but I can't change the game we all got to play. No, no matter what I say. But I can't change the rules that we play by. Yes, we can. Here's one that's non-negotiable. We're here, queer, and we're staying. We're here, and we ain't going nowhere. No, we're here, queer, and we're staying. We're here, and we ain't going nowhere. No, nowhere, no. Nowhere, no. We are here and we are queer, and we ain't going nowhere. We are here, we are queer, we are trans, and we ain't going nowhere. I encourage us to read the screen and take in these words. Take in the strength of those who showed what it is like to powerfully continue on in spite of being told that you are wrong. I'll read it. The slain individuals pictured here represent but a small fraction of the women, cis, trans, and GNC killed by misogyny, state, and gender violence. Trans and queer families slain, whether because of one of the many systems at work or suicide, you may be gone, but are not forgotten. And I bring that to us here because it is radical to claim the lineage of Black trans life, to claim that people who have been cast aside, who have been murdered, who have been harmed violently. And I tend to not bring those numbers into the conversation because it is at the expense of our well-being, right, as Black trans people, to list all of the murders and the violence that people have endured in order for other people to learn and understand. So I just encourage you to think back about the last Black trans person you either thought of or interacted with and recognize what role violence played in that moment of learning, right? I do not believe that Black trans people need to endure legacies of violence in order to be thought of as powerful or as honest. And rather, I know Black trans people to be some of the most holy guides when it comes to getting into right relationship in this lifetime. Black trans people, to me, have been the most clear guides and the most willing invitation to be honest about my life and about my desires and about my body. And what I want us to take in these last few moments of my presentation, I'm gonna bring in two main points. One is that to love Black trans people in life, you must be willing to face what Black trans people must do to survive. So if we look at the next slide, you can see that what I speak of here is that 1 in 5 trans and gender nonconforming people are forced to do sex work at the time, in the course of their life at some point. And sex work is maybe a new term to you, but what it means is someone who trades erotic labor or pleasure for services, for resources, right? And we have been taught that, as an example, those people who do that are the farthest from holy, right? Are the farthest from deserving resources. But what I'll read here on this slide, it says the stigma and not inevitable criminalization of sex work challenges autonomy and makes the work less safe. And it fails to address societal concerns around exploitation. So this is an excerpt from a report that I wrote with my colleagues here in Missouri who are committed to looking at the intersection of Black and trans people, right? Because 2 in 5 Black trans people have had to do sex work, almost half, almost 1 in 2 at that point, have had to do sex work in order to survive, right? So in this report, we attempt, and I encourage you all to look it up at mohojustice.com, which I'll show at the end. In this report, we attempt to summarize workers' assertions that criminalizing people for their bodies and the choices they make with them is harmful to their health and the health of society as a whole. And in turn, it punishes victims of trafficking and forces exploiters deeper underground. This report is part of a national discourse challenging traditional frameworks which have led to the over-incarceration, criminalization, and further marginalization of queer communities, and in particular, Black and trans women of color. I bring this up because too often, Black trans women are a talking point. Whether they do sex work or not, I am committed to encouraging and paving the way for people to become honest about what their hangups are, about not only Black transness in general, but also about those who must use their bodies and use that holy text, that sacred text, as a way to move forward, as a way to keep themselves whole. And I encourage us to see them as whole, right? Not as people who are sacrificing parts of their body or sacrificing, their well-being or their agency. They are in full agency, right? It might be up to us to support them being safe while they do this, right? While they are actively loved on and taken care of in this space. Too many of us project, right? Drug use, violence, harm, crime onto these people. And while it might be our role to help them and to keep people safe, it is not our job to judge, right? It is not our job to be in any sort of moral quandary here. People have done sex work since the beginning of time, right? And will do sex work. It was the first job. It probably will be the last job, right? And so I push us all to take in the lineage of those who, Black sex workers have been at the forefront of Black queer trans movement. Maya Angelou, sex worker. Marsha P. Johnson, sex worker, right? These two pillars of power, of Black womanhood, of Black transness, of the lineage of creativity, of what Black people deserve, right? We'll go to the next slide, and I'll just remind you to think to yourself, how do you claim your power, right? We live in the lineage of people who have shown us and who have taken us in and taught us how to be powerful, right? Like I said, Marsha P. Johnson, the queen mother, right, of history when it comes to Black and trans identity. People invoke her name all the time, right? But do they invoke the work she had to do to keep people safe, to keep people well? I put Grace Jones here, another embodied possibility of Black truth and power, right? And I bring you your attention to the quote by Toni Morrison: "Freeing yourself was one thing. Claiming ownership of that freed self was another." I bring us to this place because it is one thing to say I am free. It is one thing to say I am trans. It is one thing to say I am powerful. I am Black, right? To take that during these 28 days that we get to shout it from the rooftops. It is one thing to say I am Black and strong. It is another to claim ownership of that freed self and to shape it as you see fit. On the next slide, I will take us, through it pretty quickly, but this is another offering, and it is my work, and it is work that I encourage you to join in, right? So to grasp the potential of our power, I encourage you to see Black women and birthing people, right? People who create the generations of Black people that we love on, that we will seek to honor for the future of Black history and Black History Month, Black future years, Black futures in general, right? I encourage you to prioritize Black, trans, and expansive pleasure in people, right? The group that I mentioned, the report, the coalition that I developed in Missouri, it's called the Mo-Ho Justice Coalition, which we are actively fighting for more justice for hoes because people deserve justice at every layer of their identity, right? We have something called the Pleasure Pledge that asks that people prioritize self-pleasure. That is a step to freeing the world, right? Grace Lee Boggs taught us to transform the world, you must transform yourself. So if we're not working on our own pleasure and transforming where we have denied ourselves that, we are probably not doing our best work in the world, right? So I encourage you to grasp the potential of your power through this equation, right? And the last piece being to claim the lineage. Recognize who is in your lineage and recognize what you are an embodied commitment to the lineage of and who you are an embodied commitment to the lineage of, right? I encourage you to do it for the culture. I was listening to Kerry Washington speak recently with Laverne Cox in a video, and she was saying that, you know, her work in creating opportunity for Black women and other marginalized creators has been to acknowledge that one, if you only bring one person, that's a token, right? If you bring two, that creates competition. But if you bring three, right, and you do it for the culture, for something bigger than any one, two, or three people, you are thinking about the whole, and you are giving people an opportunity to be themselves, right? So in this next slide, I just encourage you, I'll leave you with some words before I offer Polly Murray's words and we take some questions. I offer that this song of mine, We'd Be Free, where Polly Murray is on the cover, you know, I encourage you to acknowledge these truths, right, in my lyrics. And I'll sing it because I want us to have a little bit of energy on that tip and bring that spirit in before we close. Made it past slavery, only to be chained again. Bound in our mind, systems, they fail us. Lift as we climb, we know our worth. Your limit's not ours. Black and full of life. Black and we full of fight. If we don't get no justice, we'll reshape its function and ours, is the next lyric. I encourage you to go check that song out. And I'll leave you with Polly Murray's words, who I also encourage you to look up because I just can't, there's no choice, there's no chance to fit in these vast ancestors in their work. But on the next slide, I'll leave you with Polly's words. Hope is a song in a weary throat. Give me a song of hope in a world where I can sing it. Give me a song of faith and a people to believe in it. Give me a song of kindliness in a country where I can live it. Give me a song of hope and love in a brown girl's heart to hear it. So I encourage you, I'll put my information on the next slide before we open up for Q&A. I'll put it up there for just a moment for folks to see how to contact me if you wish to work towards the potential of your power using the sacred text of Black trans people in our bodies. J. Marie is Holy is how you can find my art. I usually online put it in one word, which might make it tricky to find, but you know, look it up. I got some good pieces out there in the world, and I also encourage you to stick around. I'll be putting out an album later this year. More on that soon. 5/3, more than magic. That is what I know ourselves to be. Sacred, you know, power beyond what people have taught us we are capable of. So on the next slide, you know, I think that just gets us ready to have this closure conversation, take some questions. And I very much appreciate the space to share with you today.
Thank you, J. Marie. This was really beautiful. I find that your songs, your music has such joy, peace, and defiance. I think I was trying to think what are the words that can describe this music, and there's joy, and there's this sense of calm also, and there's always that fighting piece in them. So that I found that beautiful. I want to ask you a little bit more about your sense of affirmation. Is that an ongoing process?
Absolutely. So much of the time, you know, those of us who are in the world or seen as leaders are projected as these people who have it all figured out, and that is certainly not the case, right? I am doing my work to consistently, you know, be at peace with myself in a world that tells me I don't deserve that, right? And I hope to be a model for those who also are struggling with that or who have never heard anybody tell them they deserve to be believed, that they deserve to be loved, right? And it is my work to both love myself every day, harder and deeper and softer and everything in between. And also my hope is that that work to love myself and to model that helps others love themselves more as well.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let's see. In the chat we have, okay. In every state there are trans people who have gone missing. Have you linked up with the Black Lives Matter and Say Their Name movement?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. You know, I'm from California. I'm from Oakland, where some people might remember the name Oscar Grant. And back in Oakland, we actually had activity long before Black Lives Matter. Oscar Grant was killed in 2009 on New Year's Eve. And, you know, that movement actually preceded when Black Lives Matter kind of became a national conversation. We all kind of got back into alignment and said, you know, we already know how to fight back against the state through Oscar Grant's, the resistance to the narrative that was put out there about his family. And so I would say my resistance work, it does actually start at the intersection of gender and Blackness and Black life, but it does precede Black Lives Matter. And that I have very much been in conversation with both the leaders of the kind of global network that has, you know, become the container for Black Lives Matter, but also the Movement for Black Lives, which is another container of people who are committed to moving policy and moving, you know, direct action, but also the larger kind of the lasting effects of these narratives about Black people and Black bodies. And so Say Her Name, you know, I didn't put it in the presentation, but there was a very, very powerful direct action. We did it back in 2015, where some of you might have seen the images. They were topless or shirtless people, breasted people. And many saw powerful Black women in that photo. As someone who was bare-chested in that photo, I also served to link the Black Lives Matter work and the Say Her Name work, and was very much a part of that from the beginning. So those are my comrades. The work continues.
So I want to remind people, if you want to post questions here in the chat, please do so, because this is an open question time. And we want to bring you all into the conversation. Something that comes to mind, it takes so much courage to do your work, to break ground. Where do you find that courage, J. Marie?
I mean, I mentioned in the conversation, I definitely find that courage from other Black trans people, right? From people who have been similarly discarded, right? Or taught that their potential and the power of their potential, right, is not worth investing in. But I also find, you know, that love in Black women, right? In the lineage of Black lesbian elders, you know, the company River Collective, Tamina Frazier, I was witness to a panel just a couple of weeks ago with the living ancestors who have taught us what it's like to push at these intersections, right? The company River Collective is infamous, but many people forget that they were fighting for the right to be seen both as Black and women, right? Both as Black women who are women and people who love women, right? Because those are the layers of which, you know, our identities are squashed and where we're taught to that, you know, that our pleasure and that our desires between each other don't mix, right? And so I would say Black women, Black lesbian elders, many, you know, in that tradition have taught me that it's okay to be myself. And so I seek, you know, I definitely wish it was more in my everyday path to read and to call on their words, but I definitely see them as some of my mentors, and I do plan to engage more of their work in the future.
Okay, so we have a question here from Emily Kang, and she's asking, do you feel that music serves as a medium that enables your view to be heard?
Absolutely, right? So much of our work as Black trans people is more than just what words can push through, right? So much of our work is spirit work, is permission work, right? And that has to come through something beyond words, something that channels the beyond. And I know that, as you all know, music changes how your body feels. Music changes the ways your cells are arranged, right? And so my work is to channel, you know, my work, my words and my views into a spiritual space, because that is the only way that we're really going to be able to uncover the harm, the decades and centuries actually of harm that have been taught to us, both for ourselves, but also that are okay to project onto Black trans people, right? The violence that Black trans women specifically face, right, is a holy problem. People, you know, someone pushing violence on someone, you know, whether they're Black or not, the violence that trans women experience broadly is egregious. It is, there's, you know, burning and gouging and cutting off. There's all kinds of things that we are not at peace with as a culture. And that is not work that can be fixed or adjusted or tinkered with through a speech. That is holy work. We must all see ourselves as necessary partners, in that change work. So yeah, music is.
And I love your words when you're saying, and I am in your space, and I am in your work, and I am here. I'm here, and I'm here to stay. I love those words. We have a couple of more questions here. Jessica Gonzalez is asking, how can we be more involved with the trans community?
Yeah, and I would love to connect that to a question that I see one of our colleagues on the back end posing around how can the Academy do more work to support trans folks and Black people, Black trans people beyond making the topic an option, right? Yes, perfect. And I think the way that both of those answers can be brought in is that we have to see Black trans people like myself and like other people who are much closer than me here in Missouri, but in community in New York and in the regions that we live in, as people to be flanked, as people to support and to work with them. Too often we see them as people only to be learned from, only to extract, right? And if you look, if you go back and you watch the recording, you see that in one of my slides, I talk about getting proximal, right? Proximity is how you learn. It's how you physically take in. And of course, we're in a time of social distancing, right? But there are still ways. We are proximal right now, right? I feel welcome in. I feel supported, right? I feel like the opportunity to discuss my work through one of my colleagues, Oscar Robles, who might have also, offered something or might offer something in the future, another Black trans person. Our work is to exist and to take up space. So the reality, though, right, is that we come from people who have been taught that is not what we should be doing. So the more spaces that are shouting the worth of Black trans people and the safety potential of those engagements, the more people will come, the more people will be flanked and supported. And I think you also need to reach out into the community and see who is already doing the work at the unapologetic intersection of Blackness and transness, right? Too often we say, okay, Black people, but we know that Blackness historically has struggled, right, with its ability to hold gender and all the expansiveness that it can look like, right? Even Black women are cast aside and compared to trans people if they don't do gender right, right? And so our work is to uncover in ourselves where we are complicit in that story, and also to recognize that trans people are here to live their lives, not to teach us, right? But will teach us because of the permission they've given themselves, ourselves, right? To do that work and to do it unapologetically. So, if we hesitate to join people in that work, it is us. It says more about those of us who don't jump at the chance to support Black trans people. It says more about us than it does about them.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. Because it is upon us, upon everyone to get involved, to get close, and and to connect. That's the only way to learn from each other. Carol, only to be worked with, how to be extract. Yeah. Okay. I have a question. So you have had mentors in your life, people that were close to you, that helped you in the becoming, in who you are, in that ongoing process. And we have students who are young, who are going through their own process. And what is your advice to them in terms of finding that support that will help them through such difficult changes?
Yeah. And I definitely, relate to and have so much compassion for those of us who are in the early stages of this work to love ourselves better, right? Whether it's in a university context, whether it's in a family context, right? Whether we might be looking at the people around us might have to become left behind, right? If we are going to move forward. And so there's so much to reckon with, right? Inside of those realities that can be very painful and scary. But what I would just offer to young people or to anybody watching this who is really feeling like they're at the beginning of something and wants to, take a stand or take a stance that is going to push them beyond that fear, is to do that, right? It's to gather people around you who then also see you as worthy of the changes you want to make, right? Who see you into the world you want to see yourself in, right? And if that is not available to you, I encourage a deep journaling practice, a deep meditation practice, because the world and its messages are not going to change immediately, right? They're not going to change like that. The only thing we have power to change is us, right? And the only thing we have power to deepen our relationship to is ourselves, right? So if we need to deepen our relationship to gather that skill and to gather that will, that's gotta be our work, right? Is to meditate on that practice, on that vision, and on that view that we see ourselves in. And then, of course, as I said, to flank yourself, to find people to go towards the community centers and the classes that you want to take in the office hours, right? There is a level of focus and discipline that comes to manifesting, right? It can't just be someone wants something and it's going to happen like that, right? We have to put that work in. So what you have to meditate on, right, is the willingness to put that work in, to make sure that you know that where you want to go, you deserve to go, right? And to think about, where do I need to get myself into alignment so that I can manifest those possibilities and have the resources around me to do so, right? And it might be hard, but that's what those office hours are for. That's what those classes are for. That's what those YouTube videos are for, right? There are thousands of people out there talking about manifestation, talking about what we deserve, right? And so our work is to listen to those people, to be in relationship to those people as well, right? And to surround yourself with people who help you get closer to that vision.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see. We have here a question. Can you share with people that may not know, what does it mean for a person to be transgender?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So for those who are not familiar with the terminology, or just, want a refresher, right? For a long time, I will say many people thought that transness only meant to be assigned one gender at birth, and then to, leave that gender and only live as a binary gender that is not the one that you were raised to be, right? Or assigned at birth. And while that has looked historically like you were born or assigned male at birth, right? And you grew up as a boy, a teenager, all those times you lived as a boy, and your paperwork said boy, your classrooms, you went to boy classes, PE, locker rooms, things like that. And then maybe at some point in your life, right? Maybe it takes a couple of days, couple of years, couple of decades, you decided that you were going to be living primarily or only as a woman, right? Or vice versa in the gender binary sense. Maybe you were assigned woman at birth and you were saying, nope, I don't want that. I'm not interested in that, terminology, that placement. I'm going to live my life as a man, right? And the reality of transgender, like, kind of identity at this stage in 2021, where we are right now, is that it has become more than that, right? One reason is because, medical care, healthcare, those kinds of things can be really difficult to get, right? We know that healthcare is something for the entire American project is difficult to get, right? And so think more, Black trans people definitely is going to be difficult, and trans people broadly, it's going to be difficult to get that care if you're also, discriminated against, don't have access to, resources, your family has disowned you, things like that happen, right? And so what I would just encourage folks to think of transgender as today is someone who is expansive beyond the gender that they were assigned at birth. So that can mean, for me, as somebody who was assigned woman at birth, while I love women and I love my ability to exist in that lineage, that is just not all there is to me, right? I definitely understand that womanhood has made me who I am in some ways. And yet I also think that Black transness, Black trans personhood is what I am called to be, right? I don't necessarily feel the desire to be fully all the time seen as a man. I don't also want to be seen as a woman all the time, right? And I know that not everybody's going to be able to affirm me in that, but that's an example of where it is my work to affirm myself, right? Whether the language is nationally known or globally people are aware, it's still my work to acknowledge and say where I belong and who I belong to, which is ultimately myself.
What I love about the way you present yourself too is about this, through that process of affirmation that you have, how you bring us to these brilliantly expansive possibilities of what is possible in your life once you accept who you are, you're at peace with your body, and you create community. So I don't know if you want to say anything about, what happens once you're at that space where you are you. What are the possibilities?
I would say, part of me wants to say the world opens up, right? And everything is easier. But at the end of the day, what also is true is that things stay hard, right? The world doesn't magically dry up of difficulty, right? But what does become easier, right, is your relationship to yourself allows for things to become clearer, where you are supposed to make a decision or where you are meant to do something. It becomes more easy to discern those moments because you're not so busy fighting yourself, right, internally. If you're able to be honest about what you like and love, and you have people around you, surrounding you, telling you it's okay to like what you love and are drawn towards, right, then you kind of quieted the storm, right? You have a clarity that you are the only person who is, responsible for getting something done, right? You are the only person who is responsible for getting over a hump because no one understands the issue like you do, right? And if you're finally, through that space of needing to fight yourself, the whole world opens up, right? Whether it's jobs, opportunities, friendships, more is possible because you are being honest with yourself, even though it might be preceded by a time or the initial moment might be a time of kind of laying bare, and you might lose some of those opportunities. You might lose some of those friendships, right? It might just be you and yourself, right? But this is a very big world, right? And the university and college and all of these experiences, they're just the beginning. Or maybe you're a little, you're doing it later in life. It's still, you're always at the beginning. You are always at a choice point, right? It may not feel like every choice is available to you, but the more you clear that storm inside your body and get to peace with your body, as Sonia Renee Taylor says, as I mentioned, come and get into a relationship of peace with your body, because it's not an apology. You don't need to start from a place of deficit, right? You deserve fullness. How will you give that to yourself? Go.
Wonderful. So you're always at the beginning. You're always at that rebirth process, right? Do I get you right? Yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. This is very good. Love that. Okay. Okay. Any more questions? I guess, we should be able to take one more question. And I know that J. Marie will have to go soon. And this has been such a treat for us. Does anyone have any thoughts, any questions, anything else you would like to ask before we part?
I'm welcoming all questions in any format, and also would just leave some information here as we start to wrap.
And I want to remind people about your project. Tell us a little bit about your Music Freedom project, please.
Yeah, I will, and I'll work an answer. And from Emily here, thank you. Do I have a process?
Asking, yeah.
Music, yeah. And how do I gain inspiration? A lot of my music comes from protest moments, from moments where there is no right answer, right? We're all out in the streets, or we're all broken open by a difficult experience in the world. And a lot of my music is birthed at that place where there are no words, right? So I mentioned earlier, the spirit and the music is so necessary, right? Because sometimes in order to build a new world, we have to sit at that juncture of where what is not working, right? What has occurred is breaking us, right? And so I saw that question there, and then gaining inspiration. It almost isn't even inspiration. It's like, I need help. I'm trying to inspire myself, and maybe it's because I'm a Gemini, and maybe one part of me is sad, and the other part of me is ready to go. But I guess I just channel that star alignment and push through. And so that has been a very much kind of a path, an opening, like a yellow brick road to forming Music Freedom Dreams, which I like to tell people was my Instagram handle at first, because sometimes that's how things come to us, right? Social media, we just name ourselves all the time. And while it is no longer my handle, you can find me online on Instagram at jmariesholy. Excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, music and the freedom and the dreaming, it's necessary, right? Music must rearrange us. The freedom is what, we seek to go towards, and the dreams are how we get there, right? The ability to see it and to visualize it and to manifest it is our work. There was one other question, I don't know if it already went across the screen, about, how did I build my community, friends and family, people who support me. I mean, as I mentioned, Black lesbian elders and Black women and Black queer people have had programs and workshops, and I jump at the chance to learn from people. I jump at the chance to be with people. And I recently did something called the Black Trans Bike Experience. So I've now become a person who is trying to create opportunities for other people to join me, right, in this work of being together and of achieving more than what we thought was possible, right? Given that what we are offered from community is often, hey, teach us, or hey, here's a sticker for being Black and trans. I'm not particularly interested in that type of arrangement, that dynamic. So my work has been to elevate the standards, both of my own and also of those who demand my experience and demand my attention. My hope is that I'm raising my standards of excellence along the way, even though I do want to, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the talk, get us all more familiar with what does it mean to not have to push to be excellent just to get respect, right? So my hope is that my community gets built at that intersection of Black being poor, being powerful, and being possible.
Okay, well, thank you, J. Marie. I also want to thank the BLFSA, the Black Latinx Faculty and Staff Association of Queens College, for putting together this event and all the events that we have had this month through Black History Month. Marie, your sharing with us has been powerful, and it helps. It's you bring us a different story, and a story that disrupts the main story with which we all grow up with, and so you are a disruptor. That's your role, to disrupt, and we need that. That's how change comes about.
Thank you for having me. Y'all are doing beautiful work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I guess that brings us to conclude today. So thanks again. All right.
Thank you all. Happy Black History Month.